Welcome back to Pod Logic, presented by Straight Up Podcasts. Today, I want to hit on 3 quick tips from Monday's newsletter. And those quick tips are: be prepared to do solo podcasts. Podcasting is a long-term investment. Upgrading equipment, specifically with microphones. So we'll start with the first one, being prepared to do a solo podcast. A lot of the podcasts out there are kind of the standard interview podcast. I know somebody interesting. I'm going to bring them on my show, highlight what they are like, what their life is like, what they're really good at, what they've done either in their lives or their career. And that's a great way to run a show. It is a fantastic way to run a podcast. I understand it's not the only way to run a podcast, but I'm going to be talking about those types of podcasts. So one downside to running a specifically interview or guest-focused podcast is that you can lose your ability to command the mic and essentially do an episode by yourself. If you've been doing a podcast for a couple years, you've always had a guest on, when was the last time you really, besides doing your intro, outro, when was the last time you really had a conversation with just yourself? That skill needs to stay sharp. You need to be able to do that, because at any moment, it can become a glaring weakness when the opportunity presents itself, or I guess not an opportunity, when the problem of a guest cancels, something happens and you need to pump out either a solo episode or just not release that week, and you potentially will lose out on advertiser dollars. So you need to always be mentally prepped to host an episode all by yourself, and you should feel confident doing that. So how can you stay sharp? How can you be confident in yourself if you know you have to pump out a solo episode at any second? Well, you could do a 10-minute practice session once a week. Just sit down, don't record, or record yourself to see how you're doing, but don't release the audio. But sit down and just have a conversation with yourself for 10 minutes. Bounce ideas off of nobody. You need to be able to have a conversation with just yourself and keep it interesting, keep it fresh, keep it moving. So doing that 10-minute practice session is probably the bare minimum that you can do to sort of stay sharp. You can also have 1 or 2 solo episodes just in the deck. Some topic, whatever your niche is, say the podcast is about dogs, and this is my go-to example every time. So having 2 solo episodes on deck, ready to go, fully produced, recorded, everything. One of them is about dog grooming practices, and the other one is the most effective way to teach your dog how to sit. There you go. Have those up and ready to go. You never have to release them until you need them. And trust me, it is really nice having them when you do need them. Or if you have someone like myself, a live producer in the room with you, you can run a solo episode and have that person there to kind of back clean up, sort of come in every so often with a quip or some kind of quick thought from maybe an outsider's perspective on your dog podcast or whatever it's about, because I, as the producer, know nothing about dogs outside of producing your dog podcast. So those are some easy ways to stay prepped for having to do a solo podcast. Number 2, podcasting is a long-term investment. So I've said it once, I've said it 1,000 times. You need laps around the track to see the payoff of doing a podcast. So the most practical example that I can give you would be if you are a potential listener and you are looking at a show that you might want to subscribe to, and you see that the show has been going on for 1 year, that's a lot more reliable to me as someone who is going to have to exchange my time to you. And if it's some kind of 6-episode thing, it's really sparsed out, 1 episode every 3 months. The topic seems interesting, but I don't know from a listener standpoint if your show is going to stick around. So having that established body of work, that is when you're going to start to see the payoff of having a podcast. And the only way to get there is to just do episodes. And the only way you can do a lot of episodes is if you do it for a long time. Okay. Let's talk about upgrading your equipment. Last thing. The first thing that you should always upgrade is the thing that needs to be upgraded. Don't waste a bunch of money getting a new microphone if you need to get a new mix board first. Don't drop a ton of money on new headphones if you need to get a new webcam first. So always upgrade first what needs to be upgraded. But let's just say that nothing really needs to be upgraded, but you want to upgrade something. You want to take the next step in your podcasting journey. Upgrade the microphone first. Unless you have some kind of crazy nice microphone that's like $2,000, something insane. This microphone here is $100, and my most viewed video on the channel is me reviewing this microphone. Always go for the microphone first. So capturing high quality raw audio is the best thing that you can do that your podcast can stand out amongst all of the other big uber giants of podcasting. If you have a great raw audio sound, you don't have to tweak it a lot in post. That's the best thing you can do, is ensuring that you have a great sounding podcast. And then you can go from there, upgrading mix boards, webcams, headphones, whatever else you want to upgrade. That's it. 3 quick things, short video, short podcast this week. Thank you for tuning in. I really appreciate it. If you enjoyed the show, please subscribe either on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Overcast, wherever you are. And if you've done that, and you really still want to do something to help out the show, please consider sharing this with somebody. That is the best way that this audience is going to grow. And if you did that, I would really appreciate it. Finally, you can check out all of our other stuff that we're doing at Straight Up Podcast, whether it's the newsletter, the YouTube channel, our Instagram page, the podcast, which is weekly, and is this what you're listening/watching right now. Finally, if you are looking for someone to take that post-production burden off your plate, you don't want to take the time to learn how to edit, produce podcasts, mix it in the intro, outro music, all that crap, and you want it to sound really good and know that all you have to do is just sit down and press record and know what you want to talk about, check us out, straightuppodcast.com. I'm sure we can help you out. Thanks for listening. See you next week.